Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's Facebook Live. And I'm starting a little early this evening, so for those of you that normally join me at 6 o'clock, please catch us on the replay. And for those of you that are watching this on the replay, welcome and thank you so much for joining us. So, hello, my name is Laura Betts, and I do Facebook Lives every Monday at 6 o'clock. And I cover a wide variety of topics on health and nutrition, and of course, my area of expertise, which is hyperbaric medicine. And this month, we're talking all about meeting goals and being our own hero and supercharging our health with hyperbaric oxygen therapy and quantum nutrition testing using targeted whole food supplementation and state-of-the-art DNA analysis to help us achieve our goals. And I thought it would be a good time to kind of share my story and talk a little bit about how I founded HyperbaricsRx, what got me here. And I have to say that we do not choose the things that we believe in. And in my case, that really couldn't be more true than with how I got into hyperbaric medicine. If somebody would have told me many years ago in my early diving career that I would have a holistic hyperbaric center and do every day what I absolutely love to do, I'm not sure I would have believed it at the time. So again, I thought I'd share just a little bit about how we got here and a little bit more about me and part of why I am so passionate about hyperbaric medicine and just some of my own personal experiences with health and healing. And early in my diving career, I didn't actually know how much it was doing for me until I stopped diving after I had my daughter. So, HyperbaricsRx was founded in 1999 in Sunrise, Florida. Prior to that, I had I was educational director for a diving facility in Freeport, New York. And I was a mixed gas diving instructor. We did safe air nitrox training, we did trimix training, and we specialized in optimal breathing gas technology. And it was a lot of fun being a technical diving instructor. And at that period of time, optimal breathing gas technology was being pioneered. A lot of the equipment and training techniques were still kind of being sorted out. It was a really neat time to be a part of the industry. And I had the absolute privilege of diving with some of the absolute industry leaders, the dive industry royalty, and just some all around amazing people. So my area of expertise started out in scuba diving, and of course, the goal as a technical diver is, in fact, not to need hyperbaric oxygen therapy. Hyperbaric oxygen is used to treat diving injuries, and as an ANDI diver, I actually have never been injured in a scuba diving injury. I've never had decompression sickness. I've never been bent, kind of the term there. And ANDI, as an organization, has a perfect safety record. And they also have a perfect safety record in their hyperbaric facilities. There's never been a training incident or accident in ANDI diver training. And there's never been an accident in an ANDI certified hyperbaric facility. So everything we know about modern hyperbaric medicine came from originally treating diving injuries. And again, that's where my foundation comes from. And as part of being a technical diving instructor, we were outfitting equipment, we were pioneering equipment. Technical diving does have some pretty intensive equipment aspects of it. And closed circuit rebreather technology really was still being developed. It is nothing like it is today. And the equipment systems at the time were relatively old school in comparison to what we had now. We had a lot more cylinders. The cylinder technology, scuba tanks, was a little bit different. Some of the way we handled redundancy was a little bit different. Again, we didn't have some of the benefits that we had now. And it was amazing being an ANDI instructor trainer. And I didn't realize that every time I went to work, I was essentially doing a neurological profile. And I would come to find out later on that this optimal breathing gas technology, this safe air nitrox, that we were using to extend recreational limits and improve safety, and as travel gas in trimix profiles. And I am, by the way, one of the youngest female trimix divers in the world. I was 17 years old. I did 178 feet on the Coimbra on 5017 trimix. So for those of you that don't know what 5017 means, that's 50% helium, 17% oxygen. The remainder is nitrogen. And those are some high degree of logistic dives, especially for a 17-year-old in the New York area. Diving in the Atlantic is a little different than some other places. And thinking about my career at the time, I'm submerged in chlorine multiple times a week, and the commercial pools used an awful lot of chlorine, didn't think about it at the time, plus all sorts of other stuff that I was exposed to. In the New York area, it was very common to be diving in water that in hindsight was less than ideal. And there were some things over the years as a working diver where we didn't have proper decontamination, but you got to go to work, and didn't really think about that at the time. Another interesting thing about my family is we are a diving family. Everyone dove, and my grandfather was a Marine Corps infantry. He was first wave at Iwo Jima, second wave at Guadalcanal. He survived the sinking of the Vincennes. And what we didn't quite know at the time was every time our grandfather went out diving with us, because we were using optimal breathing gas technology, shell shock, as it was called at the time, which now is known to be post-traumatic stress disorder and traumatic brain injury. And again, same thing. Every time the family went out and went diving, every time Papa came on the boat with us, we were essentially handling the PTSD. So there are a lot of things that many military families deal with that some of the work that I do in the International Hyperbaric Medical Foundation, realities that my family was spared from, specifically because we had the benefit of optimal breathing gas technology. And I do take that very seriously. I am founder and facility director of HyperbaricsRx, and again, I'm sharing with you this evening how this story happened. I am a longtime member of the ANDI Diving and Medical Board, and I'm vice president of substance abuse program and protocol integration for the International Hyperbaric Medical Foundation. And the IHMF is directly responsible for helping to get information out there, for changing policy, for getting veterans with PTSD and TBI access to hyperbaric oxygen therapy. And what we know now to be true is just how well this works for traumatic brain injury, just how well this works for different types of dementia and vascular diseases and brain fog and stroke and all sorts of other aspects there. So just a really neat experience with it. So what I didn't know with all of this chemical exposure, and what I wouldn't find out for a little while, is that I was definitely affected by it. And again, each time, because I went to work, I was essentially doing a neurological profile, headaches and migraines and insomnia and fatigue and brain fog and unusual aches and pains. They didn't happen until after I stopped diving. So in my career, as I transitioned and I moved to Florida, and I ended up with my own diving equipment company. And when HyperbaricsRx was originally founded, that's exactly what we were. We were an equipment and training company. In fact, some of you may have come across some old material out there or an old advertising where we specifically talk about our sales, rentals, training, and service. And as a technical diving and company, as a mixed gas specialty company, we sold an awful lot of equipment for extended range diving, as well as closed circuit rebreathers and all sorts of specialty diving and spearfishing equipment. I didn't realize that my career was going to play a major role in my health down the road. So the diving industry got impacted very heavy, and as do these stories tend to go, I had some very serious things going on in my personal life, and I had major transformations and major upsets and major shifts in the business that I had worked so hard to build. And come around 2008, and I end up with a tumor in my right breast. It was larger than a golf ball, and it came out of nowhere. And it was a very, very large mass. And that's a pretty scary thing. And this happens, and this is kind of just icing on the cake. I had already been feeling terrible. Not only were the life stresses and the physical stresses, and of course, that when we listen to this story, when clinically, and if you're listening to this and this sounds familiar, right before you got sick, you had some really serious, stressful things happen. This is the way this goes. There are only four reasons why we're not in optimal health. And those four reasons relate to different types of mitochondria damage. And one of the things that significantly impacts the mitochondria is how we feel. People can die from a broken heart. When we feel terrible, we feel terrible. It translates to a physiological, and that could never more be the case in my particular situation. So it was really quite significant there. So all of this is going on, and I'm just feeling absolutely awful. And I haven't put together that I'm not essentially doing HBOT, which was managing all of these inflammatory symptoms for me. And now we have this giant mass. And this is when I got a peek into the business of medicine. And I remember very clearly the contradictory statements, and no one could answer my questions. And I remember thinking, I can deal with whatever this is. If this is cancer, okay, I can deal with cancer. I can't deal with these people. And it was an eye opening experience for me. And I got a peek behind the nefarious curtain of the business of medicine. And even when the outcomes appeared to be positive, even when the diagnostics didn't say what they wanted it to say, they still were advocating for invasive procedures. They still were advocating for serious intervention. And they hadn't even done a biopsy. And I have a referral for a surgeon, and they're discussing removing the breasts and all sorts of horrible words. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. And it just, it was an eye-opening experience. And honestly speaking, if I had had health insurance at the time, I would have followed through with the recommendations and skip ahead um, almost 20 years later, and I see how people become trapped in the system and how the system serves itself. And that may not be in the best interests of the patient. That may not be the right outcome or conclusion. And there was so much fear, and there was just, at some point, I even want to say aggression and anger. Again, no one could answer my questions. They would say one thing and then say something else. It didn't matter what things said. There was a determined course of progression that I was going down, whether I liked it or not. And when I didn't have health insurance anymore, all of a sudden, no one wanted to talk to me. all of a sudden, these things that were so serious, "Yep, sorry, bye." And I mean, it was overnight. It was just like that. And so that was a very, very real thing for me. So in this process, again, I have a diving business. And one of the things that we're working with as we're moving into technical diving is we're working with portable diver transport chambers. So the function of this chamber is that on a deep operation, right? You're on a boat in the middle of nowhere, you're doing some kind of technical profile. And if the diver were to get hurt, there are many, many hours from a full recompression chamber to treat the injury. And this can be very serious. This can be life threatening. So, being able to field stabilize the diver. So, in my diving career and my diving interest, I'm involved in these products now. The diving industry isn't doing so well, so we're looking to expand our product line and look for some more diverse markets that we can move into and expand who we're servicing. So, in this process, as I get this information, I go ahead and call up a colleague and I tell them what's going on and I tell them about this mass that's larger than a golf ball. And the colleague says, "Well, you've got that chamber there. Just go in there every day." And I said, "Well, what's that going to do?" And my colleague starts laughing and goes, "Oh." And I know now that they knew that I was going down a rabbit hole of wondrous miracles that would transform my life. But all they did was just say, "Listen, you just need to go in there every day." And that's what I did. So I would either at the beginning of my workday or at the end of my workday, I would go into the chamber. And it was a really kind of fascinating thing because I would have this catharsis. So the chamber would come up to target pressure, and in a very specific time, the term is supersaturation. That's when my body has all of the amount of oxygen. There's no more oxygen that can be dissolved in the tissues. The level of oxygen in my tissues now matches the level of oxygen in the chamber. And it was fascinating because almost to the minute of supersaturation, I would just get this catharsis. I would just the tears would start to just pour. And then as soon as the chamber pressure started to drop, um, the tears would stop. And I did that for a while. And about a year later, I went back for an ultrasound and mammogram. And surprise, surprise, no mass. It was completely gone. So no surgery, no chemotherapy, no radiation. I didn't do the mastectomy. I didn't follow through on the surgical referral. I didn't do the biopsy. And at that point, I had always loved diving. I had always loved sharing scuba with people. I enjoyed being a diving instructor. I always just would thought it was so amazing. And little did I know that there was just so much more to come. So about this time, as I'm going through this, I get a referral from somebody who is a diving injury. And this was a classic diving injury, but for lack of information, I'm not quite sure where the failures of process were. He was discharged from the ER. So instead of being treated, instead of receiving emergency recompression, he went scuba diving, he went too deep, he stayed too long, he came up too fast, and instead of doing that, they discharged him. So a few weeks later, he was seeing residual symptoms, and through word of mouth, he gets recommended to me. And there we are with this training equipment that I'm using for myself. And we go ahead and we run neurological profile. And of course, he gets better and his symptoms subside. And over the next few years, this is what would happen. And I would get all of these different referrals, and the equipment systems that were originally for training and sale became active hyperbaric chambers. And not only was I teaching and certifying people in how to be chamber operators in hyperbaric medicine, I was getting to see it firsthand in my facility every day. And I'm seeing people with chronic immune issues become stable without medication. And I'm seeing a little boy with cerebral palsy respond so well and have less spasticity and be more alert. I'm seeing children with autism that are making incredible improvements in socialization. And in some cases, it's challenging to tell that this child still had autism. And not only that, I'm working with a group and they're using hyperbaric for performance enhancement and sports injury recovery. And I'm getting to see injuries that would normally take months for them just to be able to put weight on it. And they're back practicing, and it's full strength, no issue, maybe even stronger than before. So this became miraculous. This became just something that I needed to know more about and I needed to share. And that was how it all started. So the one training chamber became two training chambers. And then we got a third chamber, and then we upgraded. And then we've upgraded again. And since then, we've upgraded our equipment several times. We have state of the art hyperbaric chambers here. And we've grown in our knowledge and in our protocols and in our ability to address root causes. And HyperbaricsRx really has become a holistic hyperbaric center where we essentially maintain optimal health and heal and restore the body naturally. And it's just absolutely an amazing thing to be a part of. And the fact that I have that firsthand perspective, and I've been there, I've moved through it. I have my own healing journey, and it's just amazing to be able to share this story with you. So there's a lot of love behind hyperbarics and creating access so that so that other people can have the ability to have the same blessings, to have the same miracle with their health that I had. You know, if I hadn't been a technical diving instructor, if I hadn't had a scuba diving equipment company that was specializing in a very, very small specialty of mixed gas diving and extended range programs, um, I wouldn't have had access to the hyperbaric chamber. I don't want to think about how that story would go. I'm not even sure I'd be here right now to tell you this story. So it's really been incredible. And again, I thank you all for joining me this evening. If you are watching this on the replay and you would love to let me help you, please reach out and schedule a consultation. And again, we do Facebook Lives here every Monday at 6 p.m. And again, a little early this evening with those good stuff. And I thank you again so much for coming out and joining us this evening. Again, HyperbaricsRx, we are an ANDI Certified Hyperbaric Facility. We have HCOs on staff, and our oxygen experts are ready to help you meet your health goals, whether it's recovering from something chronic, optimizing, whether it's an adjuvant surgical procedure, and making sure that that heals faster. The body uses oxygen for so many things, just about everything, and it can in some way be benefited by hyperbaric oxygen therapy. So again, I thank you so much for coming out this evening and joining me, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Again, thank you so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening. And again, we will see you next Monday, Facebook Live. Thanks so much.